Cari Natural Runners, bentornati su Natural
To
Run.
Natural Run, this space dedicated to us running enthusiasts. I'm David, and today we'll look together at the key aspects of this technique that allows us to reduce the risk of injury, run more easily, for longer, and why not, even faster. Just today a friend asked me, "But you hear all sorts of things about this, don't you? Some say you should run on the forefoot, others say you should land on your heel and then roll through the foot. Who decides what the right running technique is?" The answer to a question that seems complicated is actually very simple: nature. It's not that nature decides what's right or wrong, but rather, it has already decided. Or rather, evolution has shaped every animal behavior over thousands of years, making it more effective for moving around, finding food, and escaping from wild animals. Like any other animal behavior, to see which one is effective, you have to observe the animal in its natural habitat. How does a human run who hasn't been affected by the negative influence of modern sedentary life? Definitely on the forefoot. And that's actually the key to this technique. Two fundamental clarifications. Running by landing on the forefoot absolutely does not mean running on your toes. And above all, it doesn't mean that your heel will never touch the ground. It definitely will. It's just that the heel isn't the first part of the foot to touch the ground. The first part of the foot to touch the ground is the metatarsal area, near the metatarsophalangeal joints. Basically, this area right here. If we touch and massage our foot, we can easily notice that, not by chance, in that area the sole is protected by a sort of natural cushion. So let's see, with a few basic concepts from physics and neurophysiology, why this technique is effective. From a physics point of view, the movement of a body in space can be summarized by the movement of its center of mass or center of gravity. The center of mass of the human body, during running, is located roughly at the level of the second or third lumbar vertebra, just above the pelvis, in the lower part of the abdomen and back. During locomotion, that is to say, when walking, and also while running, our body's center of mass, as it moves forward in the direction we are going, will inevitably trace out a smooth, undulating sinusoidal curve like this. However, there are two fundamental differences. The first is that walking does not include a flight phase, while running does. The second is that during walking, the center of mass will pass through the highest point of this curve. This happens during the stance phase of the foot, specifically when it passes near the vertical line that goes through the point of contact with the ground, that is, when the lower limb is almost fully extended to support the body's weight. During running, on the other hand, when the lower limb is bent to support the body's weight, so the ankle, knee, and hip are slightly flexed, the center of mass will reach its lowest point, while it will reach its highest point during the flight phase. Now, let's imagine running a half marathon, which is just over 21 kilometers. In reality, our center of mass will actually travel a much farther distance, precisely following this undulating sinusoidal path. Why is this the case? Because, in fact, every arc is inherently longer than its corresponding chord. And if we could make the center of mass travel only along the chords, then we would actually cover a significant distance of 21 kilometers, precisely. But for convenience, let's assume that our center of mass covers 23 kilometers. The more incorrect our running technique is, the wider the curves of our sinusod will be. The most common mistake among runners, made by more than 90% of people who run, is technically called overstriding, which means taking a stride that's too long and extended too far forward, with the heel being the very first part of the foot to firmly touch the ground, often leading to an inefficient gait. And in fact, even though running is a basic motor pattern, that is, we are genetically programmed to run, and we would run even if we were born and raised alone in the jungle without anyone teaching us, about 80% of runners experience an injury in the last 12 months of activity. A paradox. It's as if eagles or dolphins got injured just because they fly or swim, respectively. But why, then? Because we've forgotten how to run. The sedentary lifestyle of modern civilization no longer requires this innate ability to be effective. We can get food without having to chase after a guinea fowl, but simply by filling up our shopping cart at the supermarket. Most of us, therefore, land too far ahead of our bodies, and we land on our heels. This leads to two fundamental things. The first is in terms of ground impact, which isn't cushioned but instead is passively absorbed by the ankle, knee, hip, back, and neck. The second concern pertains to speed. As long as the vertical line passing directly through the precise center of gravity, which is this particular line right here, doesn't go past the vertical line passing through the point of contact, all this space is braking distance. Only from this point forward will you start to push, to actually move forward, and the forces will be used to advance, not to brake. Landing on the forefoot, on the other hand, gives you two direct benefits and one indirect benefit. The first direct benefit, cushioning. The impact with the ground is actively absorbed by the structure naturally designed for it, the foot and the ankle joint. The second direct benefit, greater propulsion. Why? From a neurophysiological point of view, every muscle contracts with more force the faster it is stretched or lengthened. What am I talking about? Let's think, for example, of a volleyball player going up to block at the net. He won't jump from a standstill, from here, but will first load up with a quick two-footed hop that rapidly stretches the quadriceps. This stretching of the quadriceps means that in the immediately following contraction, the one he needs to jump up for the block, the quadriceps contracts with about 40% more force, so the volleyball player blocks higher at the net. The same thing happens in running. When landing on the forefoot, the muscle that gets stretched quickly is the soleus. Together with the two gastrocnemius muscles, it forms the triceps suri, commonly known as the calf muscles. In the very brief interval between landing on the forefoot and the subsequent landing on the heel, the soleus is stretched so quickly that in the immediately following contraction, that is, when I need it to move forward, it gives me 40% more force. It's free strength, inherently present in the muscles of all of us. So why waste it? Or rather, why not take advantage of it by landing on the forefoot? As we were saying about the indirect benefit, this greater contraction strength of the soleus will help support the center of gravity more, flattening the sinusoidal curve. Because it won't let it drop so low, but rather, it will support it. So the curves will be shorter and your center of gravity, you will travel a shorter distance. So, I don't know, instead of 23 kilometers, maybe just 22. Besides covering significantly less distance, by effectively flattening the sinusoidal curve, the substantial drop in the center of gravity won't be nearly this much anymore, but rather just this much actually. With huge benefits in terms of ground impact to absorb, which, moreover, is taken in by the structure designed for that purpose. Just think, for example, if you manage to flatten this sinusoidal curve by 2 centimeters, which is actually a very realistic goal in a half marathon where there are about 10,000 steps, 2 centimeters times 10,000 steps equals 200 meters of elevation change. It's as if you normally run a half marathon with a constant climb of 200 meters over 21 kilometers, but suddenly you run one that's completely flat. Just think how much faster you could go. Moreover, this increased support provided by a stronger push from the soleus will ensure that the average line of the sinusode is maintained at a higher level. By being higher up, you give more time for your center of mass, your pelvis, to move forward during the flight phase before your foot touches the ground. This way, your foot will land much more underneath your pelvis, not so far out in front anymore. As you can see in this stride, my center of mass is, on average, much farther from the ground. If that weren't the case, I would touch down with my heel already when I'm in this position, making the classic overstriding mistake. Instead, since I run tall, my center of mass has time to move forward before dropping, so I land just in this position, that is, when my pelvis is almost directly above my supporting foot. The braking distance will be significantly reduced. It will no longer be all of this, but only this. Less braking, less effort, and therefore more speed, or, at the same speed, much less effort. Well, we've seen how by improving just one technical aspect of your movement, which, by the way, is already stored in our brain, in our DNA, and just needs to be dusted off, you can make less effort, reduce the likelihood of injury, and, why not, go faster. Even though, little by little, I will fill this space of hours dedicated to running with all the tips on how to do things, videos of all the drills that help develop the correct movement and strengthen the muscles needed to support it, there is always a need for the expert's eye to tell us where we're going wrong, but above all, to tell us what to do to perform the movement correctly. I like tennis, and even though you can now find all the slow-motion videos of Federer's backhand on the internet, filmed from every angle, no matter how good I am, I'll never be able to come close to that execution just by doing it myself. Even Federer himself, perhaps the greatest tennis player in history, needed technical advice from Edberg first and then from Jabisic to improve his technique. So what are you waiting for? Keep following us on Natural Run and, above all, come to our events. An expert will help you improve your technique. Together, we'll be able to run lighter, easier, faster, and with fewer injuries. In a word, more natural. See you soon. Bye.